All right. Hello, everyone. Today I'm going to take you through a fifth grade lesson I developed. Now, I just want to say first off that this is a lesson I developed for a public school class in China with 50 students in it, where I cannot rearrange the class. I have no control over their seating. The school I was in was quite old. It's a top school, a top public school in Nanjing, China, but it's quite old. I mean, the classrooms are small and I have no control over their seating. So I was always very limited in the types of classes I could run in this school because of that. But I want to show you that it's possible to develop effective lessons um, without having to rearrange classes. And I want to show you the style that I use to teach. Now, I know that I'm going to get complaints saying that this isn't the proper way to teach ESL or whatever. And I just want to say that I use different methods to teach different classes. And this is just one lesson I developed. And this happens to be the lesson I developed for the first lesson of the spring semester last year. It was the lesson right after they came back from the Chinese New Year, like holiday break, where they have like a month off. So I developed this lesson for this purpose. And okay, I just want to take you through the lesson. The first thing I do before I begin the class is I'm always like standing very quietly in the front before the bell rings and just watching the students and making sure that they're not hurting each other, but also like they know when I'm watching them like this that they should sit down and get ready for class. Now, I developed this slide so that they know that I am watching and that I'm going to reward them for being polite before class. So I have this slide that says, who was ready and polite before class? And I have the Chinese translation. After a few weeks, I removed the Chinese translation because they understood what it meant. And once I do this, they are aware that I'm going to give them points and recognize students who are polite. So I show them this slide. And this is after I greet them. I make them stand up and greet me, and then I show them this slide. And I call out the students who were sitting very nicely before class and quietly and watching me and prepared for class. And I say, okay, and I call out their names, they stand up, and I give them points for each student who was standing up. Now, I'm gonna go over this in more detail, but my class is split up between girls and boys throughout the year. So it's girls versus boys. And so if all the girls who were ready and played before class, their team's gonna get 1 point for each girl. All the boys who are ready and play before class, they're going to get points for each one. Now, it's going to only probably be like 10 students or 15 students total, but this really influences the behavior of the whole class. If like some students are sitting nicely, other students see it, and as the semester goes on, you'll have like the whole class ready before. And if this happens and like the majority are ready, then you just give both teams 5 points, you tell them good job, and like you move on. But this is very effective for gaining control before the class begins, because you want to establish control before class starts. So that way they're in this mode, of paying attention and they're ready for class, And I also ask who was rude before class. And I do the same thing, but I'll remove points. So if someone was like punching someone else or running around or screaming before class, I will make that student stand up, say he was rude, remove a point from the boys or the girls or whatever. And this is very effective. Okay, now, my class has rules. Your class needs to have rules, okay? If you establish rules in your class, the kids will follow them. And then if they break a rule, you can take points from their team, okay? If you don't have rules or they're not aware exactly what the rules are, and then you're just removing points, they're gonna think you're unfair or like they didn't know, or they'll try to make excuses. Now, I wanna point out these icons you may have noticed on the screen. And what these mean are, like, for example, this icon of this girl. This is if someone arrives to the class late, which happens a lot because Chinese teachers may ask Chinese students to come to their office to bring them something, or maybe they're in there like checking their homework or they're doing something, and they're going to come back to class late. Now, when Chinese students arrive at the door of your class, they don't just come right in, okay? They arrive at the door, they put their hand up and say, 报告. They have to say this. It means like, I'm reporting to class. And in China, they have to do this. So they're just used to doing this. They're trained to do this. And it always interrupts my class, okay? They're always coming to the door and they're screaming out in Chinese. And so I decided that I was going to use this opportunity to teach them how to say it in English. Okay, when they arrive at the door, they should say, "May I come in, please?" Okay, and I put it on the board so in the beginning of the year, they can see it, they can read it, they can learn it. And then the whole class says, "Yes, please come in and sit down." Okay, I'm taking advantage of this real life situation to teach them English. Okay, and I think this is very effective. And I have it set up like I can get quickly back to where I was. Now I also have this icon for the bathroom. If they want to go to the bathroom, they should ask me in English. "May I go to the bathroom, please? May I go to the bathroom, please?" And I chant it for the first few times. So they hear it as a chant because it's a long sentence, a long question, and there's a lot of words in the sentence they're not really familiar with, like may, maybe they don't know, they forget to say the a lot. So I chant it, that way they learn as a chant, and the whole class says, "Yes, you may." And I also have this icon for this. Now this is if the student needs to speak Chinese. Now in my class, it's one of the rules you're gonna see. They're not allowed to speak Chinese, okay? If they need to speak Chinese, they can, but they need to ask me very politely in English. "May I speak Chinese, please?" And I'll say, "Yes, you may." Like I have lived in China for 5 or 6 years. I can understand Chinese, right? So I want them to feel comfortable that if there's really a problem or a question or there's a mistake on the board on my Chinese or they notice something that wasn't right and they don't know how to say it in English, okay, that they can use Chinese. But this rarely happens, and if they do it too much, I tell them, "Ask me in English. I know you can. Ask me in English," and then they'll try, okay? Or someone will help them, okay? But I have this as a rule because they're not allowed to speak Chinese in my class, you're gonna see. Okay, so the rules. Every class I go over this. Now, in the beginning of the year, when you're first teaching new students, you can just teach them, like, rule number 1 is sit nicely, okay? And maybe they chant it out to you or back to you or whatever. But 5th graders, as the year's gone on, like, I want this to be like kind of like a dialogue. I ask, they answer, okay? Or I switch it up and they ask and I answer. Or I have it set up on the PPT so it's the girls asking the boys or the boys asking the girls. And eventually, maybe I'm not doing anything. I'm just going through each one and the girls are asking the boys are asking the girls, and I am listening and I am giving them points on the board under their team, okay, for their good performance. Because in my class, you're gonna say, so I will say, what is rule number 1? They say the full sentence. Rule number 1 is sit nicely. Okay, good. What is rule number 2? Rule number 2 is clear your desk. And the students shouldn't have anything on their desk, okay? I make them take everything off the desk except for in grade 5, because I want them to take notes. I allow them to have a pencil, an eraser, and a notebook. Now with grade 1 and 2, they're not taking notes. They don't have anything on their desk. Don't let your students have anything on their desk. This should just be like a no-brainer, but a lot of teachers don't tell them to clear their desk, and the kids are fiddling with stuff, they're playing with stuff. Just take away all those distractions. Clear your desk, okay? Make them clear their desk. Rule number 3, be quiet. They should be quiet in class unless I ask them a question or I want them to do something or we're playing a game, okay? They should be quiet. Rule number 4 is pay attention. Now, in the beginning of the year, I had the Chinese translation for this. By this point in the year, they understand what it means, so I don't need to explain it. They understand. I do an action, right? Pay attention. I'm like looking at them and pointing out my ears and like making it very clear what it means, okay? Rule number 5 is speak English. Now, this is very important. This is a very important rule. They should speak English in an English class. They're not allowed to speak Chinese unless they ask me if they can speak Chinese. I promise you, if this is an enforced rule, your class will be a lot quieter because they're not allowed to speak Chinese. So they're not fluent in English, probably. They're not going to just be chatting to each other in English. So if in a class of 50, if there's a rule that they're not allowed to speak Chinese, they're going to be a lot quieter, okay? And if you don't have this as a rule, they're going to be speaking like quietly to each other in Chinese, and it's going to start distracting other students. And you can tell students, like, if you see someone speaking Chinese, tell me. Chinese students really like to tattletale on each other anyway, so it'll work really well. And you don't want to have too many people tattletaling on each other, but you can just say, like, raise your hand if you see someone speaking Chinese. They'll raise their hand, and you're like, what's wrong? They'll say he's speaking Chinese, and then it only happens like once or twice, and then the students know that other students are looking out for students who are speaking Chinese, and it'll self-enforce itself. Okay, rule number 6 is raise your hand. That's a good rule. Okay, now I establish rules in my class, and on the board I have girls versus boys. Each team starts with 10 points. I also have Mr. Matt with 10 points. And I want them to start with 10 points. That way I can remove points, if they do something wrong in the beginning of class. Either they're being rude or whatever, or if they're just doing something wrong during class, there should always be points which can be removed. Now, if a student breaks a rule, they will lose 1 point for their team. I visually show them this, okay? Next, if the same student breaks a rule the second time, their team will lose 3 points, and they must stand for 3 minutes, okay? So the same student is still misbehaving. The point loss is getting higher and higher, okay? And it's not gonna happen that often that they're gonna do it twice, or the same student's gonna misbehave, because I'll show you, I'm gonna have them write their name down in a book if that happens. So it's probably not gonna happen, but just in case. And if the same student breaks a rule for the third time, their team will lose 5 points, and I'll take a photo of that student and I'll send it to their Chinese teacher. Now, this is something the school wanted me to do, and they like that I do this because it used to be that I would just have the Chinese kid's name, or I would only know their English name. So I'd say oh, Max broke the rules, and the teacher would be like, well, who's Max? They don't know their English name, And then the kids would deny that it was them, or even if I wrote down their Chinese name, the kid would be arguing with the teacher that it wasn't him or whatever. But if I take a picture and I send that picture to the teacher, it's very clear from the picture that that's who it is, and there's no argument from the student, and it just works much better. And the 2 years I was in this school, I only did it, I think, 5 times. It never really needed to happen, because once it happens, the other students see it happen, and they'll never get to that point again, because the student will be afraid that it'll happen. So this doesn't really need to happen, but I want them to be aware that this is a potential consequence, okay? Okay, now each Chinese class has a class monitor. They all have one, okay? So this is an opportunity for me to remind them that in my class, the class monitor is still doing that same job. And also it's a good opportunity to practice some English. So I say, who is the class monitor? And then they'll all point at that girl or that boy. That person will stand up, and I'll say, what's your name? And she'll say, oh, my name is Lily. And I'll say, okay, Lily is the class monitor. Lily will write down the names of rude students. Okay, all students are rude, not bad. There's no bad students, just rude students if they break my rules. I write on the board, right? Above the points, I always say please be polite, don't be rude, with a smiley face and a frowning face. And this reminds them that the same thing that happens in their normal class is still happening in this class, which is that class monitor is gonna write down their name in that book, okay? And sometimes the Chinese teacher will come in and say to them in Chinese before class starts, she'll tell the class monitor, make sure you write down names or something. So I'm just reinforcing what they already know is gonna happen, okay? Okay, now up to this point of the class, we're only in the second minute of class. Everything I just told you happens very quickly, okay? It's part of a warm-up. So we get to this next part of the warm-up, which is what is today's date? All the kids chant it. Or I might switch it up sometimes, and they'll ask me what the date is, and I'll say. And of course, before class, I write the date on the board. Today is Monday, February 18th, 2019. I write that on the board so they can just read it, okay? And with grade 5, they can read it. With younger grades, you can make it a chant or a little dance or whatever. But this is part of the warm-up. I want them to practice all of this, okay? And some of this stuff's hard for them to pronounce. So it's good practice for their fluency in English, okay? Now, this is another thing I do in each class. Did you bring a notebook today? If you have a notebook, let me see it. Now, they should all, by the third, fourth week, they'll be prepared with their notebook on the desk. And other students will already know that I'm going to ask this. So they'll be pointing out students that don't have their notebook. And they will call each other out. Now, what I do is I make all the students stand up that don't have their notebook. And for each student that doesn't have a notebook, I remove a point from their team. So if 5 boys don't have their notebook, they lose 5 points. Or if 5 girls don't have their notebook, they lose 5 points. So this is good incentive for them to bring their notebook and for them to just be prepared for class. Now, if they see this icon during the PPT, during the class on the PPT in the left corner, it means they should write down whatever I'm teaching them. So all the vocab and sentences and stuff will have this icon. Okay, now I told you this was the first class I taught after they came back from the Chinese festival, the Chinese New Year. So I asked them this question. Now, I will ask them this question for like the first month so they can practice it every week. It's part of one of the questions I teach them, because in the third, fourth, fifth week, everything after the first week, in the beginning of class, during the warm-up, I review. I review the previous few classes, like questions and answers and some vocab. So this will be the first one that they learn. And I'll say like, where did you go to celebrate the new year? And this is very similar to the question I asked them in September, which was, where did you go during the summer holiday or the summer break or whatever exactly it was? And I give them a few possible responses, okay? Now they can use a different response, but I like to give them some options. This way they feel comfortable to raise their hand and say one of them. And also they can learn some new words here. Stayed, returned, the past tense of go, and all this stuff. And they can add extra words in there. They can say, I went traveling to Hainan, or I went traveling to Japan, or whatever they want to say. But I like to give them some options they can practice. And the Chinese translations are there, so it's all clear. After a few weeks, I'll remove the Chinese and maybe eventually just remove all those options altogether and let them just tell me what they were or their own answers, okay? Now, teaching. So this class is about the new year. So I show them this and I ask them, what do people say to each other after the new year? And I'll see if they know. Probably they know. They say Happy New Year. And then I say, what does the other person say? And they're going to look at me kind of confused. And I'll say, oh, they also say Happy New Year. So Happy New Year, and then Happy New Year, Happy New Year, Happy New Year. Okay? Then I say, 2019 is the year of the, and they'll tell me it's the year of the pig. And I explain this. Okay, I say new goals, and I read it to them. In many countries, at the beginning of the new year, many people will make new goals. These goals are something that they hope they can do in the new year. And I'll ask them, what is a goal? What is a hope? I'll try to see if they know these words. I'll show them the translation. And then I'll show them the Chinese translation of this entire thing. And Chinese students can read this in like 10 seconds. I just want to make sure that they understand like what the purpose of this lesson is very clearly, okay? I didn't show them the Chinese right away, so I let them think in English, what does it mean? And I let them confirm that they got it, okay? Now, I'll show them this. The goals we make at the new year are called, they don't know, so I show them New Year's resolutions. Now, even Chinese grown-ups who speak English might not know this. It's not something I think that they really learn in school here. I don't know how common New Year's resolutions are in China as a tradition, so I don't know. And I show them this. And I don't even think that this Chinese translation is like even something that they normally say. It's maybe not a normal thing, but they can understand what it means, So I just say that a New Year's resolution is something very common people do at the new year, okay? They're new goals they have for that year to become better. Okay, I quickly explain. Okay, and I'll show them these potential goals. And I might elicit some of these things from them, ask them what are these goals, and I'll see what the kids know. I'll see what the kids can say. Now, what you'll find with students is that they know a lot of stuff. They know a lot of stuff, but maybe they can't say it in English, or maybe they can say it in English, but they can't say it in a sentence, or they can't do it the way that you want them to do it. I study Chinese in university this year, and it happens all the time. I mean, the teacher's speaking in Chinese the whole time. I'm following everything. I understand the whole class, but then she asks us a question which should have a simple answer, and I just don't know how to say it the proper way. I can speak in broken Chinese to explain the answer, but I don't know how to say it properly. So in this class, I'm going to teach them how to fluently say these goals. All right, phrases. First one. Now, I always include a Chinese translation of whatever I'm going to teach them when it comes to vocabulary, because I want them to all be on the same page and to know exactly what I am saying, So there's no confusion. I didn't always include translations, and I found that the students were a little bit confused, about the exact meaning. Unless it was a really simple noun, they didn't always know exactly what I was saying, and I assumed that they did, So they might, if I don't have this up there, maybe they might think I'm just saying fat and thin. They don't know, you know. The really good students who study English on the weekend might know or understand, but maybe some of the lower level students don't. And in a class of 50, you're going to have like maybe 10 really good ones and then like 10 really bad ones that aren't good at English, and then a bunch of kids in the middle. So you want to make sure they understand. So I show them this, I say it, they repeat, lose weight, and I chant it. I want them to practice their pronunciation of this. And what I like to do, since they're split up into girls versus boys, I say, all of the girls, please say, and they say, lose weight. All of the boys say, lose weight. And I make a judgment, who said it better, which group, and I give them points. Or I'll say like, if the girls say it better than the boys, girls will get 2 points. But if the boys say it better than the boys will get 2 points. And I like to do this as a way to encourage them to drill with me. Otherwise, you just say lose weight, they're going to be like, lose weight. Like they don't care, you know. You want to encourage them to be enthusiastic, to follow you, to say it. It's a competition, you know. And I repeat the same process for the next phrases. So get high marks, eat healthy foods, and I'll quickly explain healthy, unhealthy. Maybe some of the kids know it, maybe they don't. You know, they can write it down. Some of the kids really like to write this stuff down. They get very excited. Okay, next one. Improve my English. So this is the hardest one, and I think this is the one that you really need to drill with them the most. They don't know this word, improve. So you can drill it maybe a few extra times. Be more polite. This is like a running thing in my class. Like one of the rules is be polite. I put it on the board. I really want them to learn this concept. Polite, rude, they understand this word. And because I repeat it every class, they all know it. Okay, then I play a game. Now, my classes, I use a task-based approach to my lessons, which means I teach something and then I let them play a game or an activity to practice and drill. This way they remember it, you know. So I really like this game. It's called the flyswatter game. I stole this game from another teacher, and I guess she stole it from someone else. It's a really effective game, and I'm not sure if I played exactly the same way as everyone else, but this is how I play it. So I bring up 2 students, and I give them each a flyswatter. So I bring up 1 girl, 1 boy, give them a flyswatter, and I explain the rules. Now, even if they know the game, it's very important that you repeat the rules again, okay? Repeat the rules. Not so they know the rules, well, that is important, but just so they can hear the English again. They can hear it again. They can confirm. They can hear the sentence again. You know, I say the same thing, like, this girl and this boy have a fly swatter. And I draw a fly on the board, like a pretty bad drawing of a fly on the board with a circle around it. And I say, you're going to see a picture. Everyone must say the phrase, okay? The first student to say the phrase will get a point from their team. So all of the students who are sitting down are also playing this game, okay? The whole class is playing. So I show a picture of one of the previously taught phrases, and the first student sitting down to scream out, like, eat healthy foods. Okay, let's say it was a boy who said it first, before everyone else. I give the boys 1 point to encourage them to quickly say the phrase, okay? Then, if a fly pops up, like a picture of a fly, the 2 students in the front have to race to hit the board, and the first student hit the board will get a point from their team. Now, I explain this to them simply so that they get it, and I repeat it every single time. That way, if I play the game more than once in the semester, they hear it again, and they're always telling me, oh, I know, but I still tell them again how it works. It only takes like 30 seconds, but I think it's important for their listening, comprehension, and eventually I'll ask them, like, how does this game work? You know, you tell me how this game works. And the best students in class will be able to tell me, you know, they'll be able to explain it. Here's how it works. I say, round 1. And I'd like to do this. I'd show them a fly first. They're not ready for it, right? They're ready for like a picture of a phrase that the whole class has to say. But if it's a fly, they need to hit the board, okay? And it always happens if I do this first that one student is totally caught off guard and the other student will hit the board. They'll get a point for their team or 2 points for their team, and I'll laugh and everyone will laugh, and then we continue with the game. So I show them the first one. Everyone says, be more polite. First student to say it gets a point for their team. Next one, get high marks. First student to say it from the crowd gets the point, okay? If everyone says at the same time, I'll be like, it's a tie, and I give both teams a point. I'm quickly running through them, okay? So the whole class is chanting and practicing this vocabulary. And they're looking at their notebooks, to make sure they can say it. They're all like trying to stand up and like scream as fast as they can. And it gets really exciting. So after they hit the fly, whoever hits it first, the kids will be cheering. You have to do a countdown to bring them back down. Okay, so 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I put like a standing posture with my hands on an imaginary desk in the front and make sure they're quiet before I continue to the next one. Otherwise, the class is going to turn into mayhem, okay? You continue the same process. They're all saying the words. You're giving a point each time, whoever's first. If you can't tell, give them both a point, whatever. Then the fly, whoever hits the fly first gets 2 points, okay? 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, settle them down and continue, okay? So you can play a few rounds of this. So in round 2, I'd make the 2 students who just had the fly swatters, I make them sit down, and I'll bring up 2 new students. And I'll rinse and repeat. And I think this game is a really effective way to practice the vocabulary, practice their fluency, practice being able to quickly produce the language. Because in order to be fluent in a language, you have to be able to quickly think of words and connect them together in a sentence, And that's the hardest thing. I speak Chinese now, but in class, it's like trying to either read Chinese off the page or quickly speak Chinese fluently. The hardest thing is just like stringing it all together, even if you can read it off a page in your head or listen to someone speaking in the language and understand it, to be able to move your tongue, your mouth, to say something fluently, quickly, it's hard, okay? And they need to practice this. And this type of game where they're being encouraged as a competition to produce it quickly, it's effective, okay? So I'll play a few rounds of this, 3 or 4 rounds. I might cut the game short if it's going too long or whatever, but generally, I'll try to let at least 8 students come up and play. Okay, and then I move on to the next part of the lesson. Now, every class should include a dialogue. And what is a dialogue? A dialogue is a question and an answer, essentially, right? Someone asks you something and you respond. So the sentence that I teach them in my classes is always the answer to a question that they're going to be taught. Now, in this class, I taught them 3 different ways to answer the question because the answer is really easy. I would like to. They can all say this. So I tried to teach them something a little harder. I hope to, my goal is to, I would like to. And I tell them they can pick. They can use them, either any of them. So I hope to lose weight. My goal is to lose weight. I would like to lose weight. I hope to improve my English. My goal is to improve my English. I would like to improve my English. And I drill it a little bit with them, okay? And I might even throw in the question here before I teach them, what is your New Year's resolution? They can guess what I'm asking and they might be able to use one of these to answer me. And then I show them the Chinese translation just to confirm they get it. They understand exactly what I am saying. Now, some teachers might say, oh, you don't need to show them this. They can understand, blah, 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 blah. I understand, but I still feel more comfortable with myself that I know for sure they understand. Because I'm telling you, I study Chinese and sometimes I think I understand what the meaning is and I'm a little bit wrong. And it throws me off later because I memorized something a certain way or I thought I knew it, and then I try to use it in another situation. It turns out that I'm just like off, because the meaning wasn't exactly what I thought. So I just want them to see it and it's just confirmed. They'll write this down in their notebook, okay? And for homework, I'll make them write like a few answers to this so they can remember. Okay, so then I teach them the question, okay? Sometimes I will just show them the question in Chinese and see if they can guess how to say it in English. I do that sometimes. In this case, I just showed them the question, what's your New Year's resolution? Because it's quite hard. I know I taught them the word resolution before, New Year's resolution, and some of them might be able to do it, but it's better for me to just say it, drill it a few times, and then again, this is a task-based approach. We're going to play a game. So I don't need to spend like an hour drilling this because I'm going to be drilling it during the game that I play. Now, this is a game I invented during the spring festival that year. And it's not a revolutionary game, but it's just a new twist on probably something other people play. I call it the help game. And I designed this way of explaining it, modeling the game. So it was very visual, so they can understand. Now, you don't need to do this in your class, but it does help, The best way to explain a game is to model it, either bring students up and as you're explaining it, have them do it, bring up the best students and like explain it, and they can kind of perform it, right? But also you could do this, right? I show them very visually. 2 students will be blindfolded, and they can see very visually what that means. My students know the word blindfold because I played other games with them, like action games, TPR games, where I would blindfold students and say a word and they had to do the action blindfolded. So they understand like what this means already, but just in case, it's very visual. A picture will appear. They see the picture, right? All students sitting down will see the picture. These students can't see. They are blindfolded. All other students must be very quiet. If anyone says the word, their team will lose 5 points. Oh no, 5 points. This is big money here. So this is a big loss of points, so it's going to convince them to be quiet. Inevitably, one student will forget during the game and say the word, right? And if they do, just as you said you would, that team loses 5 points, okay? And that'll be the last time that happens, I promise, okay? So this is an effective way to keep them quiet. Everyone must be quiet. Very visual, okay? Or you will lose 5 points. Okay. The picture will disappear. Okay. After the picture disappears, the students can remove the blindfolds. When I say remove the blindfolds, I do an action, remove. They can see it, they can visualize this. And then I say, the 2 students will say, please help us. Please help us, okay? And this is just some extra language they can learn. And then other students, sitting down students, will give clues about the picture. For example, in school, test, study hard, dad is happy, and the 2 students in the front are thinking, and then finally one says, get high marks, and I say, yes, that is correct. He's the winner, okay? Now, this is the way I'll explain the game visually to them. Then I'll bring 2 students up, and we'll do it like a trial run with 2 students, okay? The same procedure will happen. They're blindfolded. I'll say, be quiet. I'll ask them, do you see it? And all the students will be like, yes. I'm like, be quiet. Remember the word. Don't say anything or you'll lose 5 points. Then it disappears. I say, remove the blindfolds. Then they must say, please help us, please help us. I'm very enthusiastic, making them chant it. And then the students start to give clues. Okay, they give clues. Finally, someone says it, and I show the answer. Whoever said it first gets 5 points. And then I make the class ask, what's your New Year's resolution? Or I say, all boys, please ask him, what's your New Year's resolution? Okay, and all the boys will ask. I'll say, boys, you asked very, very well, but really, really nicely. And I'll give them 2 points for asking really, really well. Or I'll be even more specific, like, boys, if you ask very, very well, I'll give you 3 points. If you ask okay, I'll give you 2 points. If you don't ask very well, I'll give you 1 point. If you can't speak, I'll give you 0 points, okay? To encourage them to try to say it correctly. And I say 3, 2, 1, go, and then they say it together, okay? Then he gives his answer. He can say anything he wants. He doesn't need to say what this was. He doesn't need to say my goal is to be more polite. He doesn't have to say that. He could say whatever he wants, okay? Now, generally for the example here, I'll just, I'll have them ask the girl as well. Same procedure for the girl, obviously. And for this one, I won't give them any points, but then I'll say like, okay, now it's time for a real game. Okay, and I do the same thing again. Same thing, same procedure, same exact procedure, okay? And yeah, they enjoy the game. Now, I posted a video on YouTube last year when I played this game because the first day of school, one of my coworkers, one of the teachers I work with, who I actually was managing, the first day of school during one of the periods he didn't have class, so he came and watched my class and he was filming it for his own, I don't know why he was filming it, but he was filming it. And in the video, it's really funny. So we're playing the game, the kids are giving clues, and the word was improve my English. Okay, so the students are standing up and they're giving clues. Like one student says, hi, and another student says their Chinese English teacher's name, which is Miss Lu, and then the kids don't know. And then they say, one student raised her hand, she says, Mr. Matt. And the boy goes, lose weight. And like the class erupts in laughter because it's just hilarious because like I'm pretty thin, you know, and like it was just funny, like lose weight, and they all started laughing. Anyway, the reason I thought it was a really funny moment is because the whole class was paying attention. They all understood the English. They all understood why it was funny. They all understood all this stuff. So it was like a real, just like a good moment in class, you know. And it was just a really funny moment. And I always remember that, especially because there's a video of it. You can check it out on my channel. Okay, so I'll play a few rounds of this, right? Play a few rounds, let them practice, and they enjoy it, okay? I love games like this because it includes the whole class, right? The whole class can give clues, and like it's fun. And then at the end, I will show them some other responses, and if there is time, I'll let them ask their desk mate, okay? And they can use these other responses. Be friendlier, improve my piano skills, run faster, do less homework, make Mr. Matt happy, okay? And I'll let them ask and answer the question with their desk mate, or I'll walk around and ask some students, okay? It just depends on the class. It depends on the energy of the class. If they're very well behaved, of course I'll allow them to ask each other. But if it's a more rowdy class, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to ask myself or call on two students to ask each other, okay? You ask him or you ask her, or, you know, I'll do it like this, okay? And yeah, this is how I'd run like a public school class in 5th grade, okay? Now, I just want to say again, this is just one class. This is just one lesson plan. This is just one set of games, one set of vocabulary. This is only one class. I know there are people who are going to watch this and complain and say like, this isn't the way you teach ESL or whatever. And my response is that there's a lot of different ways to teach ESL, and every situation is different. If I'm teaching in a class of 5 students or 2 students or 10 students or even 15 students, I'll do the class in a much different way. Now, if you teach 50 or 60 students at the same time, good luck putting them in groups, okay? Good luck, okay? They're gonna get loud and rowdy, and they're not gonna be doing what you ask them to do. They're gonna be doing what they wanna do, okay? But if you maintain control over the class, you're monitoring everything, and everything's set up in a way that you're in control, okay? You're gonna maintain control over them, and they're gonna learn a lot more, okay? Now, during a review class or whatever, you can bring back the same language and allow them to practice it in a different way. But the first time you teach it, you want to maintain control, make sure they're learning it properly, make sure they are taking the notes and all this stuff. So this is the way that I like to teach this type of lesson in public school in China in a large class where I am not able to rearrange their seating or anything like that. Now, if you decide to teach, put them in like groups and stuff in a small class, go ahead, try it. It might work, you know, maybe certain groups are really good, or maybe you have a way with them, or maybe the classroom is much bigger and you are able to rearrange their seats and do that. It's fine. But the last thing you want is for the class to just get totally out of control. The kids aren't really doing what you want, and a teacher walks by and looks in, and there's the foreign teacher, like no control over the class, and like it just looks like a disaster, okay? So if you want to do a good job, and if you're in a public school and you're there, you're the only foreign teacher in that school, you're the representative of ESL or foreign teacher ESL in China, and this is what your class looks like. You know, it looks amateur. So that's what I'm just saying, like, if you want to maintain control, this is my advice. You can take some of the ideas that I presented here today and yeah, try them in your class. The new year, the Chinese New Year is happening now. So, or like next week, and you go back to work at the end of February, maybe you can try a lesson like this. And I hope some of these methods work for you. So I hope you enjoy this lesson. I hope you enjoy this video. I'm going to be posting more videos like this. If you did like this video, please like and subscribe to my channel. I'm going to be posting more videos like this. So thank you for watching, and I hope to see you next time.